Nikki, remember when artists had to rely solely on galleries or craft fairs to get their work seen?
Yeah, those days are long gone. Now we're all just staring at our phones instead of making art.
And constantly wondering if we should be posting reels, carousels, or just give up and become hermits.
Right? Social media can feel like a full-time job that none of us signed up for.
Today, we're going to break down social media strategies that actually work for artists without eating up all of your creative time.
And I promise, not once will we tell you to just post consistently.
Hi, this is Laura Lee Griffin.
And this is Nikki May with the Startist Society, inspiring you to stop getting in your own way and start building an art biz and life that you love.
We are artists who believe strongly in the power of community, accountability, following your intuition, taking small, actionable steps, and breaking down the barriers of fear and procrastination that keep you stuck.
Follow along with us on our creative business journey as we encourage you on yours.
So, social media for artists, it's a topic we get questioned about all the time.
And it's because there's this constant pressure to be everywhere, doing everything. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, now X, I guess, LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget the new platform that probably launched while we were recording this episode.
Exactly. It's absolutely exhausting just thinking about it.
So our first major tip is to pick one primary platform where your ideal collectors or clients are actually hanging out and focus your energy there.
Yes, and I'd add, pick the platform you actually enjoy using. If you hate making videos, TikTok might not be your jam, no matter how trendy it is.
That's such a good point. If you're miserable every time you open the app, it's going to show in your content.
And before anyone chooses a platform, they should ask themselves, who exactly am I trying to reach? What kind of art am I selling? And where do those people actually spend their time?
Absolutely. For most visual artists, Instagram is still strong because it's so image focused, even though there's a lot of video, right? There's still a lot of image focus there. But don't overlook Pinterest, which has a really high conversion rate for sales.
Right. And Pinterest is really more of a search engine itself than social media. So it's a great way for people to discover your work.
And it gets more popular as time goes on, whereas it's the opposite for a lot of social media, right? Where you post something and then after 24 hours, nobody sees it.
Right. And if you're creating more commercial work or home decor, don't write off Facebook. I know it's not the cool platform anymore, but there are still millions of people with disposable incomes scrolling through there every day. And in fact, Facebook is where I've made more connections and sales than any other social media. But maybe that's because I'm old.
Well, that is where the old people hang out, Nikki. But the old people also have the disposable income. So
yeah.
Okay, so once you've chosen your platform, the next big mistake is posting without a strategy. And I don't mean a content calendar. I mean an actual plan for what you want your social media to accomplish.
Are you trying to sell directly from the platform? Are you trying to build an email list, get licensing deals? Each goal requires a different approach.
For example, if your goal is to get your work licensed, you'll want to showcase more collections and patterns, show your work in context on products, and tag companies that you want to work with.
But if you're selling originals directly to collectors, you might focus more on your process, the stories behind your pieces, and showing the scale and texture of your work.
And this brings us to our second major tip. Create content buckets or themes that support your specific goals.
Which is a fancy way of saying categories of content that you rotate through regularly.
So instead of staring at your phone thinking, what the heck do I post today? You have a system.
Yeah, for artists, those buckets might be studio shots, works in progress, finished pieces, behind the scenes, inspiration, education about your medium, and personal connection posts.
And once you have these categories, you can batch create content for them, which is a huge time saver.
Yeah, you could batch maybe once a month and take photos of everything you're working on from multiple angles, and then you've got content for weeks.
And when we say photos, it could also just be little mini videos, right, that you could pull together and create a reel from.
Yes, not just could, it should also include videos.
All right. And I have to admit, I'm one of those people who loves to put stories up and then I don't do the reels and then the stories are gone in 24 hours. And it's like, why did I do that? So I've got to get much better about bulk creating content and then actually putting it out there where it stays and lives.
Well, Laura, like we always say, do as we say, not as we do.
All right, well, let's get super practical now with some specific social media strategies that are working well for artists right now.
All right, first up, a peek behind the curtain. Artists who show their process, not just the perfect final piece, typically see much higher engagement.
And this doesn't have to be complicated. It could be as simple as a photo of your messy palette, a time lapse of you working, or even a photo of that piece you totally messed up.
People love seeing the human side of creating. It makes your work seem much more accessible and really more interesting.
Plus, it helps potential buyers connect with your work on a deeper level when they understand what goes into it.
For sure. And it gives you a chance to educate people about your medium and process, which can help justify your pricing.
Our second practical tip is to use storytelling in your captions. Don't just post an image with "new painting, DM for details."
Guilty of that one. Talk about missed opportunities, right?
Right. Instead, share what inspired the piece, the challenges you faced while creating it, or even a personal story that connects to the work.
Yeah, stories sell art in a way that dry product descriptions never will. They help people feel something, and those feelings lead to connections and purchases.
So our third practical tip is create content that serves your audience, not just promotes your work.
Yeah, this one is huge, Laura. If every post is just, here's a new painting, buy it, people are going to tune out. But if you're sharing helpful tips, inspiration, or even entertainment, they'll keep coming back. One of my favorite people to follow on Instagram is an artist named Darren Thomas McGee, and he works under the name Real Fun Wow. And his Instagram is hilarious. It's like 90% entertainment with mentions of sales thrown in, but also he even makes his sales stuff just really entertaining. I highly recommend looking at his Instagram for inspiration.
All right, we'll link to him in the show notes. I think you've sent me a few of his reels, and they were really funny.
Oh, I have. Also, I'm going to try to get him to come on the podcast.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just say if you're a watercolor artist, you might share a quick tutorial on creating smooth washes or your favorite paper that you use.
And this totally doesn't dilute your brand or give away your secrets. It positions you as an expert and helps build trust.
Now, fourth tip, use your analytics, but don't be ruled by them.
Oh yeah, this is a big one. It's so easy to fall into the trap of only posting what gets the most likes, but that's not always what converts to sales.
Exactly. You can have posts with minimal engagement, but could lead to multiple sales because they reach the right people.
Yeah, actually, I'd love to hear from our listeners in our Facebook group about this. Have you ever had a post that didn't really get much engagement, but actually led to sales? Or the opposite, tons of likes, but no actual business results?
And our final practical tip, don't just broadcast, engage. Respond to comments, engage with other artists' work that you admire, and build genuine connections.
Social media is, after all, social. It's about building community, not just shouting into the void.
And the funny thing is, when you're genuinely engaged with others, the algorithm actually rewards you by showing your content to more people.
Which is a win-win, right?
It is. All right, so let's talk about a pattern we've seen with artists who are successful on social media.
Well, I've noticed that the artists who do well don't necessarily post the most often or have the highest production value in their photos and videos.
What they tend to have in common is consistency in their message and authentic connection with their audience.
Yeah, I remember one artist that I saw who was really struggling with social media. They were posting beautiful photos of finished work, but getting very little engagement and really no sales.
That's a typical trap, right? Showing only the polished end result. Guilty.
Right? Exactly. Then they completely changed their approach. They started showing videos of their hands working with the materials, close-ups of textures, and even mistakes they made along the way.
And within just a few months, they had significantly increased their following and were getting inquiries and sales directly through their platform.
Yeah, the key isn't necessarily posting more often. They were actually posting less often, but with more intention and connection.
Which just goes to show that quality and strategy trump quantity every time. So, Nikki, what is your personal strategy with your social media marketing?
Well, my personal strategy is to forget it exists for many months at a time and then, but don't Don't do what I do. No, seriously, when I'm doing it the way I want to do it, and really it has to do with how often I'm creating. When I'm in the mode of creating art, then I'm also taking process videos and showing steps along the way and just sharing what I'm actually doing and what I'm thinking about. And when I can remember to do that frequently, then I get people in my DMs asking about things.
Right.
What about you, Laura?
Well, very similar that it's for me, and part of this is just because my day job can be quite all-consuming sometimes.
Right.
And so I might go weeks without creating. And then I'll have a pocket of time where I'll create like 5 paintings in a week. And then I just want to show everything to everybody. And that's my downfall. It's like I'm putting it all in my stories and everywhere. And I'm like, rather than, batching all of that and then trickling it out over time.
We both, and many people get guilty of when we're actually working on something, we get so excited that we want to just show everything at once.
Yes.
And although we promised not to just say post consistently, it really does help to not show everything all at once and then disappear for months. You've got to keep going back and doing it pretty regularly.
And so to me, one of the things I'm trying to do little reels that show the process, like a time lapse or something, because I usually just say like, oh, look at the finished painting, at this angle and at this angle. And I'm like, really? That doesn't show the process, right? And another thing I'm starting to do is put in inspiration. So, for example, I have this tree in my front yard that I'm obsessed with. It is a pink magnolia, also known as a saucer magnolia tree. And it's the first blooming tree of the season. It's known for that. So it usually blooms the last week of February, the first week of March. And when I say bloom, Nikki, I get
it explodes. I remember your Instagram stories, not posts.
Well, this year I actually put a reel in and it's there on my, so we'll have to link to it so people can see. But it's got like 10,000 blossoms all at once. They're pink and it looks like a big cloud of cotton candy or something, this tree, and it smells wonderful. And so I basically walk towards it and walk under it and through the branches so people can see the inspiration. And then I will eventually be painting that tree, right? But it's kind of showing eventually versus just taking videos of it.
Right.
But I also have a magnolia, a southern magnolia in my backyard, and I have some beautiful pictures I've taken of the big flowers that bloom in like May, June timeframe. So again, the goal is like sharing the inspiration, which is part of the story, right? And then, sharing the artwork along with it. So taking people on the journey of the things that inspire you and the things that you enjoy, I think is something I'm trying to insert into it. And again, I do need to find ways to space things out a little bit more because I get so excited, Nikki, about it, and I want to share it all right away.
Well, the way we mentioned having like content buckets that you cycle through, inspiration photos and videos like that are a great one to include in your mix. Right,
to be one of those content buckets for sure.
Yeah, and I really always plan to include not just artwork I'm working on, but my travels in the bus and how that works into my inspiration. And I need to get better about taking process videos of me working in my tiny little bus studio.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, I need to get better about that one. So hold me to that.
Yeah. And so personally, I do focus on Instagram because that's where I tend to go. I know there's other platforms that have been generated. What's that other new platform that got created not in the last year? It was for artists primarily because of the AI.
Well, it lasted so long that I don't even remember the name of it anymore. And we talked about it, I think. Did we? I don't remember. Anyway, new ones come and go, but
they come and go, but certain ones are going to stick around. Like I'm not a Twitter person. I'm never going to do Twitter. I do have the Threads that's on Instagram. I think I've posted once maybe. But what I like about Threads is I think that's a place where you can go and people feel like they can be even more authentic. So, I think you should be authentic with your regular Instagram, right? But on Threads, people feel like they can share more about their frustrations and the things that are going on in their lives. And that's another way, I think, to be authentic with people and engage and communicate with people is using something like Threads in a different way than maybe you would use Instagram.
Yeah. So again, I focus on Instagram more than anything else too, but also Facebook, because Facebook is great for a lot of direct communication with people. I get the most engagement when I post on Facebook because people will comment and we'll have whole conversations. So Instagram and Facebook. And I really want to get better about using Pinterest because I just know that, and actually, let's get a Pinterest expert to interview.
I think it'd be great. So this is interesting because I thought like Pinterest kind of came and left. But it's still a big deal.
It is.
And okay, I'm going to give you a really random example. I don't know if I've ever talked about this on the podcast before, but I come from a crafty background. And so on top of, I came from like rubber stamping and polymer clay and that kind of industry. And then I've sewn for years. I taught myself how to sew right out of college. And then I ended up creating a nonprofit sort of charity project that provided sewn hats and knitted and crocheted hats to cancer patients in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. And I did that for like 14 or 15 years. And so sewing has always been fun for me. And when I got a dog, I created a pattern for a dog bone that people could download. It was a little PDF.
Well, that's adorable.
And then I had little step-by-step instructions on my blog on how to do it, right? So I created this, like 15 years ago or something on a blog. And since then, my website transitioned and I don't have that blog entry anymore. But it was on Pinterest. It got put on Pinterest and stuff. And to this day, I probably get more people trying to access my website for that tutorial from 15 years ago for a dog bone thing that I made than anything else.
Maybe you ought to redo that on your current website and go edit the pin and link to your current website. Although that's not the audience you're going for anymore.
It's not the audience I'm going for anymore, but it's like, wow.
But just to show you the longevity of things on Pinterest compared to any other.
And I had an affiliate link to the squeakers that go inside the toys on Amazon, right? So people would go buy the squeakers to put inside of the bones and stuff.
So you've made 37 cents on that?
I've made at least 57 cents, Nikki. At least 57 cents on that.
All right. The point is, Pinterest is really not social media, but it gets lumped in with it. It is really a great visual search engine. And we should not ignore it. And I am going to definitely focus on it with my new print-on-demand shop. And we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. And then for educators, things like YouTube, a lot of people on YouTube, it feels like YouTube's made a resurgence in recent years, that there's just a ton of people out there posting content there. But that takes a lot of time and energy.
It does. It does. So pick a platform that you love, not one that exhausts you just thinking about.
Yeah. I feel like most social media is exhausting. Even Instagram sometimes is exhausting. But I think it's also the expectation you put on it of like how frequently you have to post and all of that. It does feel like you make it work for you and not feel like a slave to that thing because
use it the way that feels good to you. Don't necessarily, you see so many people advertising my system of Instagram strategy where you schedule everything down to the minute and batch months of content in a day. If that exhausts you, don't think about it that way. Figure out a way to use it that feels good for you.
Yep. All right. So to wrap this up, remember that social media is a tool for your art business, not the business itself.
Right. It's only one channel among many, and it should serve you, not the other way around.
Here are our key takeaways. Choose one platform and focus there first. Know your specific goals for social media. Create content buckets to make planning easier in a way that serves your goals.
Mm-hmm.
Show your process, not just the finished pieces. Oh, I should mention here, show your face too. We didn't talk about that, but showing your face, we know is key. And we're both really bad about that.
It's helpful.
to tell stories with your captions, right? To create value beyond just selling. Use analytics as a guide, not a ruler, and engage genuinely with others.
Yeah, and remember, what works for one artist might not work for you. Your social media should reflect your unique voice and style, just like your art does.
We'd love to hear your social media success stories or challenges. Join our Startist Society Facebook group and share what's worked for you or what you're struggling with.
And if you found this episode helpful, please share it with an artist friend who might need to hear it.
Next week, we'll be talking about building your email list as an artist, which, spoiler alert, is actually even more valuable than social media for most creative businesses.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one that I definitely need to break out the bourbon for.
Like you need an excuse for bourbon, Nikki.
Well, that's an excellent point.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.